Welcome back to Tansson Talks. I'm Brandon, the host of the show, and I always love doing this. Heading into this episode 107 on the show, I'm very excited to welcome my guest here today, Gavin. Welcome to the show, Gavin.
Happy to be here, Brandon. Thank you for having me.
Of course, I'm so excited to have you. And so, first of all, how is your day going thus far?
Not the easiest day in the world. As you know, we talked about off camera, the issue with my car, but I am had a good day with family, made some Christmas cookies and rolled out some peanut butter balls, various treats and such. So, looking forward to my mom's Christmas Eve party and just kind of the holiday festivities. So, not a bad day at all. Not a bad day at all. Just, had some better ones.
Well, I certainly hope that your day goes well, especially with your car. But I'm so glad that you are enjoying the holiday season as of recording this.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and so of course for those watching, we are recording. Yeah, a few weeks and months in advance, but nevertheless, I'm always excited to do this. And Gavin, as a fun fact for you, is that you are actually for this current iteration of the show, Tansson Talks, you are actually my 100th guest here on the show.
Oh, wow. Very cool. Very cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, and I thought it was just, like I said, so great like I said, you get to be the 100th one and my 107th episode overall. And Gavin, if you can go ahead and introduce yourself for the watching and listening audience here today.
Okay, so hello, my name is Gavin Geary. I am located in located in Gavin. I'm located in Kentucky, from a very small town. It's called Bardstown. It's the bourbon capital of the world. Everybody, it's sort of a tourist town, but basically my hobbies and interests include. I got into running this past summer, and uh, began to increase my miles until I completed a half marathon. So that was a pretty big moment in my life, completing a half marathon. And if we talk about it on this podcast, that's definitely something I never thought I would be capable of doing. I wrote a book that is yet to be published. I really need to dig back into getting it published, but I have a novel that's completed called Aspiring to Die, and it's essentially a tale of a guy who's struggling with mental health, and I took a lot of the experiences from my job working for Amazon on the floor of this warehouse that I work at in Kentucky, and just kind of incorporated a lot of things from my personal life, my personal feelings. Um, my One of my main interests is personal finance, and that's something that I have been studying for almost a half decade now. I'm 22 years old. I started that when I was 17, and basically just started investing right at 18, trying to figure some things out. I tried day trading for a little bit, and eventually got into the where the real money is at, which is long term investing, and that's sort of been my career arc. But definitely have a lot of different interests. If you can actually see. Have some martial arts weapons against the wall because I kind of dabble in that a little bit as well. But I do my best and try to be a well-rounded person, and that's something that is important to me. I try to be as well-rounded as possible, and yeah, I'm just really excited to be here and to answer any questions you have for me, Brandon.
Oh, well, I certainly love that. And I mean, I'm just so excited for the conversation and yeah, and so I actually did want to start off with your recent half marathon and with your recent running. And so, what really brought you to wanting to run?
So for me, I think I have tried a lot of things in my life. I think at first in early life, you can be you're sort of afraid to try some new things. And I think what I wanted to talk about a little bit today is the way that your mind and you will limit yourself and you will limit your potential far sooner than your body or your actual brain ever will. Um, a famous speaker, David Goggins, he says that there is no limit on the human mind, and you can accomplish anything if you really, really believe you can do it, and you put in the work, you put in the time, you put in the repetitions, that you can achieve that. And that's something that I've tried to address as much as possible here in the recent years. Just I wanted to address everything I believed I could not achieve. I wanted to say, okay, why do I believe I can't do this? I believe I'm not an athletic person because in high school I wasn't very athletic. I always tell my friends I was the guy who you throw a football to them and their hands kind of snap together in front of their face and the football hits their glasses. It was bad. And I believed, oh, well, I'm not an athletic person. I can't do this. I'll never have a body like that or I'll never be able to run that far. And I just wanted to address as an adult, okay, why do I believe I can't do this? Why do I believe I can't do that? Why do I believe I'm not capable of this? And running was one of those things where I was like, gosh, when you see somebody running as hard as they can, it's sort of poetry in motion. Their whole body is activated. Everything is coming together to make that movement. Their knees, their feet, their ankles, their arms, all the muscles in their core, their abdomen, everything's engaging to create a sprint. And I thought that was beautiful, and I wanted to take part in that. And because I've tried so many things and quit, I told my family when they asked me, I said the reason I think I stuck with it is I was like, I just I'm sick of giving up, I guess. I've had too much of it. So I started running. I basically got into it and I started with a very short distance. And I remember my very first run that I went on. I tried running before and given up. For many times I'd tried running before. I thought maybe I could do it and I would give up, but I stuck with it, and my first distance was really bad. I remember I was sucking air horribly. I couldn't catch my breath. I thought I was going to have a heart attack. But as I built up and I continued and I gained more confidence, I just really fell in love with it. I found a true passion for the way my body could move, the distance, and constantly proving myself wrong. And that was the thing for running with me is I would run 2 miles and I would think it's so difficult and I'd be like, okay, I want to run three, and I'd run 3 miles, and then I'm like, okay, well, how far can I really go? Can I go 4 miles? Can I go 5 miles? And I would just push myself until I found this beautiful place of just constantly unlocking the next level and the next level of my potential and proving that, okay, I believe for all these years I was unathletic. Maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm not naturally an athlete, but does that have to stop me? Does that have to, for the rest of my life, do I have to submit to those rules? I think not, and that's what I wanted to push. So that's how I got into running. It was just I got sick of quitting, and so I stuck with it, and I really wanted an opportunity to show everybody how far I'd come. So I was like, okay, what would be the best way to do that, and also to have an emotional moment with my own body. Um, Achieving something I thought I never thought I would achieve. Never thought I was the kind of person that could achieve it. Didn't have the body type or wasn't the kind of person who had that tenacity. But I completed the half marathon. My grandparents were there. My mom was there. My sisters were there, and my closest friends were there. And yeah, that was an amazing moment for me, Brandon.
I love that you were able to do that, accomplish it, and prove yourself wrong. And how did that feel knowing that you were able to, I mean, accomplish that? Because I know, of course, yeah, with running, that, of course, as you mentioned, that you went a little further each time leading up to this half marathon. But whereas, like a half marathon, it's a more tangible thing, that it's something that you're able to set yourself to and accomplish. So how'd that feel, especially with your family around?
Um, well, I'll be honest. When I finished the half marathon, I felt awful because the last 3 miles. So I hadn't prepped maybe the way that I had wanted to. So I was going really strong, and I got up to about the 8.5, 9, maybe 9.25 mile mark. And then my training sort of took a hit. I got a little bit lazy with it, just kind of got into a lull where anytime you start something new, you're really excited for a little while, and then you hit a little bit of a plateau. Your progress isn't as explosive as it is in the beginning because whenever you're learning something new, your progress is so fast, and then it slows, and then it slows, and the more you do it, the slower the progress is. Um, Bodybuilders can tell you that your first 3 months in the gym, you see all these gains, and then slowly your weight isn't exactly going up quite so drastically, and you have to do more to get less results, and it's frustrating. So I guess I got to that point a little bit, and then um, I say that to say that when I finished my half marathon, I really had to push myself. I mean, it would take everything in me, and that was sort of an emotional moment for me where I was just like, gosh, I pulled everything out of me because I was determined to finish. You know, I'd invited too many people. Can you imagine inviting all of your peers and your family and then not finishing? I was like, no way. I'd rather die. You know, like I'm going to finish this half marathon no matter what. But I kind of laid down in the grass after and just kind of like, you know, laid out, and I was exhausted and my back really hurt, my feet hurt, and it was awful. But when I looked at the medal, they give you this little medal when you complete a half marathon and some other things. And I was looking at this thing and I couldn't believe that I was a finisher of a 13.11 mile race. And looking up at everybody and, you know, seeing their congratulations, it really meant the world to me. And the fact that, you know, it's a cool thing to accomplish something and be alone, but it's a wonderful thing to accomplish something and be surrounded by those you love and cherish. So, um, I was grateful for that opportunity. Absolutely.
I love that, and I love the way that you mentioned like being surrounded with loved ones, your family, and that it was something that you just had to do. You had to accomplish it. You had to finish it. Yeah, especially given all that was on the line. You'd prepared for this moment, and even though, as you mentioned, that it may not have been the exact way that you may have envisioned it, maybe with the preparation or otherwise, is that you nevertheless have done it. No one can take that away from you.
Absolutely. As long as I am alive, if I never go for another run, I will always know I ran a half marathon, completed it, and I think they tracked. So it was my first race ever. So you know, bear with me. But they tracked 675 people, I believe, that did the race. It's like 675 people, and there was old people, there was young people. I think there were some teenagers and everything. And I finished 569th. So I did beat 106 people, but I wanted to be a little bit closer to the middle, but towards the end, I'm telling you, I was just so happy I finished. Just happy I finished and gave it everything I had. So, yeah.
I love that. I mean, the way that you describe that feels exactly how I think about having recently completed my master's thesis before graduating, earlier in 2024. And so, yeah, for me, I don't feel like I prepped in the way started the writing process in the way that I wish I had in retrospect. Definitely a lot of writing nonstop, especially towards the end of that deadline. But nothing could stop me, even if I wanted to, in accomplishing that. And sure enough, I was able to do it and graduate at the date I went to, May 3rd of 2024. And and for whatever it's worth, for whatever the cost it was to do that, all that writing is. I'm a graduate. Nothing can ever change that. Nothing can ever do anything. Yeah, if I ever do something later, maybe I'll pace it out better. But you know what? We're here. We're here now. We can't change anything at this point.
Absolutely. I think I just to congratulate you, you know, even on your own podcast, I mean, a master's degree is, um, you know, it's funny. That's something that I'm not sure I could do, but you know, it's one of those things that you know I'd love to be able to prove myself wrong, but I don't know if I'll ever get around to actually going to college and completing that. But I think that that is absolutely incredible. I um, always been an intelligent individual. I'm somebody who sort of struggles with the school atmosphere, the sitting still, listening, writing. I'm very easily distracted, and so I think the reason I have so many hobbies is because I love to pour myself into something, and then once I hit the slow plateau of the progress starts to fall off a little bit, I just get into something else. Um, I can do a little bit of everything because I feel like I've gotten into everything at some point. I mean, I you know I can cook pretty well. I can, like I said, I do the things with the martial arts a little bit there. I love to write. You know, I finished that novel. Very interested in acting as well. I did a lot of acting in small plays, short plays in high school. But no, yeah, I mean the commitment to that one idea and that one goal for 6 years of a master's degree, I commend you because um, I'm sure that that's a huge mountain to start, especially when you know I know it goes year by year. And I think what I love about that process is when you're a kid, you think a bachelor's degree, you know, you sign it at the beginning, and you just have to do the 4 years. You sign a contract at the beginning, or if you want to do a master's degree, you just sign a contract at the beginning, and you've got to go for 6 years. That's it. But what I think is funny about the system is every single year you have to recommit. As you have to say every single year, even after you got your bachelor's, you had to recommit for 2 more years and say, hey, even though I've already got the bachelor's, it'd be a great time to quit. I'm not going to quit. I'm 2/3 of the way up the mountain. This would be a nice place a nice place to stop. It'd be comfy. It'd be comfortable. But I'm gonna pursue, and I'm gonna keep going. And I think I totally understand what you mentioned at the end there, where you said you were writing a thesis and maybe you procrastinated a little bit and you had to write nonstop closer to the deadline. I did that all throughout high school, but yeah, I just congratulate you on that. I mean, that's an incredible accomplishment. I have a friend who I believe she has completed 4 years and one semester or 5 years of school, and she's actually taking a break before finishing her master. She's burnt out, so I definitely congratulate you on just staying the course because I, I mean, I've never even attempted it. I just know it's an incredible feat for sure.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so for a little bit of background about myself is that I believe similar to you, I'm actually only 22, and so for me, I had done both my bachelor's and master's over the course of a combined 4 year period, which was
Oh
definitely.
wow, that X awesome. That's awesome. I did not know that. Yeah, that's crazy.
Thank you. Yeah, and so for me, it definitely, was so interesting going through it. Definitely didn't have a ton of peers at the time that were going through any sort of similar situations. Having done all of my studies online, uh, but yeah, so I did my bachelor's degree in 2.5 years, and then my master's in a year and a half. And so, for me, a part of
Wow.
uh, the rapid part of the thesis process was in part because it's designed for the whole 2 years, and so because I was only a year and a half and took my classes a tad out of order, that it made it a lot more chaotic to try to plan, because whereas you normally have a natural progression and a game plan, mine was not done in that order, because I actually started with some of my last classes first and then ended with my first semester classes. And so, but nevertheless, though, I mean, I think we all have our own paths, and, you know, and I think that's just sort of mine. And I like that you're mentioning that you, for your path, are very well rounded. And I know for me, I started with content creation about technology stuff, reviewing like the latest phones, for instance, and then evolved into podcasting and TV discussions now. So it's truly been an evolution, you know, but I'm sure for you, in collecting so many different interests, that I think it just sort of makes us, a little bit more interesting, that, we have so much stuff that we get to check out, and I'm sure even more interest to come for both of us.
Oh, absolutely. We're so young. We're so young and so unpolished even now. We're the roughest of diamonds even in this moment where we feel like we've accomplished some things where we've got some things that we're proud of. You know, I was basically proud of myself for tracking Bitcoin, as well as I did, and being somebody who um, followed it and wanted to make sure I didn't buy too into the hype, and I was able to sell at the right times and buy at the right times. So like, I knew a lot of people that were like, even people my age, where I think cryptocurrency really is meant to apply to a younger generation because you kind of have to. You still got to be dreaming a little bit to kind of get into cryptocurrency. You still have to have a lot of imagination available to you. And so I knew so many people, even my age, that were like, I just, I don't want to learn anything about that. I don't want anything to do with that. I don't trust it. I think and I was like, okay, well, this is going to be a part of our future. So many times people have tried to dismiss cryptocurrency, and here the government put off making laws about it multiple times, and now they're forced to address these things. They're like, okay, Bitcoin is bigger than, I believe, almost every company in the world. Bitcoin is worth over $1 trillion. Ethereum is, right there behind it. And when you look at that, I was like, okay, so even though this is kind of scary territory for me, I need to know about this to have a complete financial education. I mentioned my interest in personal finance. I was like, how can I ever say I have a complete financial education when there's this whole thing that, well, it would be easy to ignore, and a lot of people do. There's money to be made, and obviously there's some knowledge that I need to acquire. So I was happy about that, and of course, I wrote that novel that's yet to be published, but hopefully that will be out in the next couple years. I pray. But I guess what I wanted to say about the interest, I think I lost my train of thought. Oh, I knew what I wanted to say. I wanted to say, have you noticed so many times um, people give advice where they say, stick to what you're good at, kid. Stick to what you're good at, or know who you are and everything. And I really want to push back against that because I'm like, okay, I could have accepted for the rest of my life, oh, I'm just an unathletic guy. That's me. I'm just an unathletic guy. I was a water boy in high school. I called myself team manager so I could get a little bit of respect because I learned some of the taping for the athletes, and I, was able to carry a lot of the equipment and stuff, and be helpful. And I knew a lot about basketball as well, but a big part of that was just getting waters for the athletes. And I could have accepted that that's who I am for the rest of my life, and just said, that's my role to play in the field of sport. And I was like, no, I can do this. I can accomplish that. I just have to, maybe I got to want it more than the next guy. Maybe I can't run as easily and quickly as a lot of people I know, but you know, well, gosh, if I want it, I should be able to have it. And so I think the people who give out the advice is stick to what you're good at. Don't try to, err too far outside, or, you'll regret it or whatever. I mean, I think to young people, I've seen brilliant people give this advice, and far more brilliant than me, but I'll give the same advice. Just try as many things as possible. Don't be afraid to fail. Be willing to stumble so that you get the opportunity to stand back up again. I mean, I haven't been very great, at a lot of the things I've tried. A lot of the things I do try, you get a moment where you're like, okay, I'm not naturally gifted at this. Now, I can overcome that. You have to believe that you can overcome that. Or if you have a moment where you're like, hey, you know what? I can't be the best at everything. I don't necessarily feel the desire, the need to overcome this. I can back off. I just wanted to give it a try. But experiences, build up your experiences, go strange places. Sometimes, you can't be afraid to go somewhere alone, go to a movie alone. Just I want to kind of share this one quick experience. I'll tell this quick story. I went to a comedy show once, and I went all by myself because it was pretty short notice. It was a comedian I'm a big fan of, and I was like, it's short notice. I don't really know anybody who might want to go to this, and then they're going to have to invest some of their money to see a comedian I like. So I think I'll just go alone. I'll just I'll just go alone. That's fine. And I drove hours to get there. And what was so cool is I sat by this family and sit down next to this guy, and he doesn't say anything to me, but I kind of sit there and I'm like, I don't want to just stay in my bubble. Sometimes I can be introverted, and I was like, I don't want to stay in my bubble today. Let me try to, span my wings. I felt like I looked good. I dressed well. I was like, let me be confident Gavin today. So I looked to the guy next to me, an older gentleman, and I was like, I'm just going to pretend I'm with you guys. And he was just started laughing. He's like, absolutely. You're here by yourself? I was like, yep. He's like, well, then you're here with us. And I was able to talk to that family almost the entire time that I was waiting for the show to begin, and a little bit after. It was an incredible, cool older guy that I, got and met, and I had the opportunity to learn about. And then his son, I actually followed on Instagram. He gave me a rating on my podcast. He followed me back on Instagram. We communicate pretty frequently. I mean, I made this friendship and had this opportunity to meet these people simply because I was like, hey, imagine if I had been afraid to go alone. Imagine all the opportunities and times where people are like, well, I don't want to go there alone. I don't want to look sad or lonely, or, I never would have met them. I never would have had that opportunity if I hadn't been afraid. And imagine, even if I took the opportunity, if I had just been introverted, imagine if I kind of like, maybe even changed seats, maybe moved a seat over because it was weird. I was sitting right next to this guy and I was by myself, or I hadn't started a conversation. I wouldn't have had the opportunity to meet a really cool guy that I did that day, and begin a friendship. So just learn from that story. Anybody who hears this, that step out of the comfort zone as often as possible, because the comfort zone is comfortable, but it's typically not progressive.
I love what you're saying, with that, stepping out the comfort zone and building up your experiences, and I think even for a personal example for myself is that, yeah, as even though I am of introvert nature in the sense that I got my energy from being by myself, that doesn't mean that I don't enjoy meeting people. And so, like for me, I feel like it's always so fun whenever I have a chance to meet people, especially when I least expect it. I remember at the beginning of 2023, January 6th, that I was preparing to. So basically, to backtrack a little bit, so that was when I was about to start my full time in my master's program, and so I was also going to be a graduate teaching assistant for a class, and so we had a seminar sort of day, half a day, where we had to basically give a mock class experience, so to speak. We had to teach a lesson to a few peers, and then if we all give thumbs up or whatever, then we're all good to instruct a class. And so, all that to say, though, is I remember seeing someone there that was very nervous. He was presenting over and over again about his presentation, and and so I decided just to chat with him, and it was able to help calm down both of our nerves. We practiced with each other, and sure enough, we both passed. And so yeah, and we've been able to keep in moderate touch since then. Over the course of this past year and a half. And it's moments like that I can truly see the power of communication. That we don't have to be alone. And don't get me wrong, it's fun to be alone. I love being alone. But in the same regard, though,
Same here.
yeah. And it's like, in the same regard, though, that doesn't mean that we have to be alone 24/7. We're allowed to enjoy ourselves, to meet new people, to, like I said, to truly get out of that comfort zone, as you were mentioning. And so, yeah, as those moments, I think, are just absolutely priceless. Even the power of, as much as I value friendships, I feel like there's even such a power in even one-time interactions where you just have an amazing one-time conversation with somebody that you may never see again. That's still worth it. It's okay to enjoy those experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, you can just find memories that would not have been made, or experiences that you just wouldn't have in your memory banks. Like I almost think of um, one thing I did a lot of, not only just investing in stocks and cryptocurrency, but I went on a lot of different trips to a lot of different places in America. And one of my goals is I want to visit, go to, not necessarily drive through, but visit every state specifically for a reason, all 50 states before I turn 40. I had visited around 20 states before I turned 20, so that was kind of like that goal. And then, I want to go to all 50 before I'm 40. That's something that's really important to me. And so I was like, I want to invest in these memories. I'm young. I'm, as far as, necessarily having a disease or whatever. I'm not in perfect health because I don't necessarily eat all the best stuff all the time, but you're not going to be young and healthy again, you know? There is no young, healthy, vital you waiting down the road. You know, it's an opportunity when you're young and healthy and free. And I don't have a girlfriend right now. Not engaged or tied down necessarily to anything. I'm do pretty okay with the financial decisions. I haven't, lost a huge amount of money in any crazy ways. And so, like, I have the opportunity to travel and to go to these places. I took my mom on a trip to New York City this year. That was wonderful. And that was just, the memories there. I went on a trip to Los Angeles at some point. I went to Las Vegas twice, once by myself, which a lot of people thought was crazy. And then once with my father for a week. And just invested in those memories. Invest in memories sometimes. You have to think, um, you know, you ask yourself, should I really be spending this money on a concert? And if you're going to every single concert, then you do have to have that conversation with yourself. Me especially, I go to a lot of concerts. If you've surfed through my Instagram, you can tell I go to a lot of concerts. I think I've been to 26 so far, and I'm only 22. But I do want to say that if you haven't had that conversation a lot, go to that concert. You never know how long these people are going to be touring, what opportunities you'll have to see them. You're young, you're healthy. Like, get out, go, see, do. One little anecdote I can give is my sister and I, her favorite band of all time is Panic at the Disco. You may have heard of them. And the lead singer is Brendan Urie. So we went to a Panic at the Disco concert and we sat really close and we got amazing pictures and had a wonderful time. I mean, this was years ago, but I have vivid memories from that concert. Um, I think 6 months to a year later, Panic at the Disco announced they were going to go to Europe, tour there, and then that was going to be it. They weren't going to tour anymore. Brendan Urie, he has a kid, he has a wife, he wants to build his family out. He's leaving a Panic at the Disco, and he doesn't need to tour anymore. And I'm just like, imagine if I had told my little sister, well, let's wait, maybe the tickets will go down in price, next year, or they're so popular right now, or, is this album really the best? Maybe if you get stuck in this frozen moment of just waiting and waiting, they call it paralysis by analysis. You're doing so much analysis, you've experienced paralysis. Um, we wouldn't have had another opportunity to see Panic at the Disco. And you may think that's a little bit silly if you're listening to this. You're like, oh my gosh, he got to go to a concert he might have missed out on, woo. But I think that's a lesson that I learned in life is um, most of these people you're going to get another chance to see. I'll be honest. 90% of people, 95% of people, you're going to get another opportunity if you pass on them, if you feel sick, you don't feel it, whatever. You don't have the money at the time. That's cool. But if you are a go-getter and you grab opportunities when life presents them to you, you snatch them off the plate. You don't poke at them with your fork or push them left and right with your spoon. You snatch them off the plate, those opportunities that life presents. Many times you'll be rewarded. One of the most famous little sayings of all time that typically is associated with gambling, unfortunately, but it's fortune favors the bold. Fortune smiles proudly upon those who are bold enough to pursue her. So, yeah.
I like what you're saying about investing in memories, and I think that just is so important, especially when we're thinking about, you know, going through making decisions, trying to just sort of figure out and navigate life. I feel like that's just always so important. Is that I think while it is very important, of course, to definitely think of like future ramifications and and long term, of course. I'm definitely a planner, but in the same regard too, that doesn't mean dismiss the present. Like if you're interested in something and you thought through it, then why not go for it? And I wanted to ask a little bit too. So, as a two-part, somewhat unrelated question. So, since you had mentioned a few times that you have been doing, looking into your personal finances since the age of 17, like what really drew you to that? And then, as the second part of the question is, since you mentioned that you're trying to hit all 50 states before the age of 40, have you already hit Virginia out of curiosity? And which part of Virginia did you hit? And how did you enjoy it?
Okay, so to answer the first part of that question, I think the investment thing. So, ever since I was a little kid, and I mean, many people experience this. I just wanted to be rich, man. I mean, I just wanted to be rich so freaking bad, and I didn't come from a family with a lot of money. I mean, we were the kind of family where um, my sisters and I kind of have this memory where there was this one time my dad came and told us we were going to Chili's, just regular old restaurant, Chili's. They have them all over America, and we were like, "Oh, what for?" And he was like, "Oh, no reason." And we are like, we're going out to eat, like at a restaurant to sit down, like just because, like no reason, like we're not that just didn't happen for us, like it wasn't like a lot of American families. Your dad might be like, you guys want to go to Chili's or whatever, or do you guys feel like getting this, you want to swing by Olive Garden. Olive Garden was I think for a lot of people don't, people kind of frown upon it now, people kind of turned on Olive Garden, but that was a real treat for me growing up. I really looked forward to just going to driving down, this road in Kentucky and going to an Olive Garden, but so definitely didn't grow up with a lot of money, didn't grow up with a lot of new clothes, a lot of stuff from Goodwill, a lot of stuff that was hand me down. And I just had a burning intense, I just wanted to be rich, man. I wanted to buy whatever I wanted, have whatever I wanted, go wherever I wanted, especially. And I thought initially for a long time that I was going to get a master's degree and I was going to move to California because I was, I didn't have a good relationship with my dad at the time. So I was like, I hate my dad. I want to go to California and I want to, get a master's degree and make all this money. And it was very vague and, indescript. And it wasn't exactly, I mean, I was a kid, I was an angry, anxious little kid, I guess. So as I grew, I was like, well, okay, it's not as simple as that. I do want to stay in Kentucky. I love my family now, but I'm still very interested in financial freedom. I am always going to be somebody who's drawn to um, the guy who can quit his job at a moment's notice and he's got 6 months of savings saved up so he doesn't have to work for the next 6 months. He's comfortable. And we mentioned that I'm having issues with my car. Like, it's something that kind of pops into my head too, where I'm like, if I had worked really hard and I was doing better, and this is kind of where I beat myself up too, and it's silly because I'm 22 years old, but I think, gosh, if I had a lot more money and I'd found out my way to acquire wealth and to grow wealth, this wouldn't stress me out so much. If I had, $40,000 in a savings account, I wouldn't be nearly as worried as I am right now. Like it's not that I won't be able to afford another car. It's just that if I had that immense financial security, that immense um, just number of dollars sitting there that I can immediately go out and make a cash purchase on a vehicle I really like, and then that's that. It's simple. There is no financing involved. There is no, I can just go out and pick pretty much whatever I like, and I think about that a lot. But at 17, I that's when they teach you. They really dig into economics, at least at my school. And so they really dug into economics, like, late junior year, early senior year. And so I'm reading all about this stuff, and it just kind of inflamed that thing in the best possible way, that desire in me to become wealthy. I was like, wow, like, supply and demand. And this is, how you interact with a customer. And I heard somebody say something on a podcast once I think is just brilliant. I wish I could credit him, but somewhere someone said, a business's first goal is not making money. A business's first goal is creating value for its customers. And yeah, I'm just like, oh my gosh, wow. And that's kind of, a little bit off to the side of what I'm saying, but I guess the reason I got so into it is I have that desire to find financial freedom. And so I was like, I want to learn all about this stuff. I love it. Even the boring stuff. Like, I like, looking at the earnings statements and comparing the revenues and such things, and just kind of like looking at what analysts are saying, what the price target is for the next 12 months on some of the stuff and the stocks and everything, and just learning, being more knowledgeable, and being somebody that my friends can sort of confront. I consider myself to be somebody who has sort of mastered credit card points. That's just like one of the little things I got into, is just maximizing and mastering the acquisition of credit card reward points and dollars, and just finding the best way to not pay a cent of interest, but to get as much money from credit card companies as possible. That's something I got into. And I guess I just really enjoy it, and I wanted to know more about it and be able to help other people if they asked me or if they wanted information. My mom and dad are definitely not people who, um, thought a lot about finance. And, I think a lot of people too, sort of what we talked about earlier on this podcast, is a lot of people believe in their head they just could never get rich. They have that mental block where I say that we put these limits on ourselves. A lot of people have that block of saying, well, that's just not for me. I'm just not somebody, I don't have rich parents, or, I don't have the biggest brain in the world, or, well, I work really hard, but it's just, or a lot of people think rich people are bad. A lot of people think rich people must have cheated. They must have stolen something. They must have conned somebody. They must have taken advantage of the fellow man, and that's how they got rich. So there's a million reasons why people aren't rich, and a lot of them are not. You're not working hard enough, and so I just want to kind of address that. And like when I talk to my mom and my dad, like help them out, make better financial decisions, because I know so much now that even though I'm no expert, I'm an expert to the average American, I should say. But and the second part of your question about the states, um, I actually have been to Virginia. So for my 16th birthday, I do have some grandparents that are pretty well off. Now that doesn't mean they're leaving any insane inheritance, but they have made really good financial decisions. But um, a big part of that was just they had amazing jobs, and they moved up those jobs. They worked really hard. They attended personal finance classes and such, and did well for themselves. Well, for our 16th birthday in my family, me and my two sisters, they said you can go anywhere in America, the continental United States, of course, not Hawaii or Alaska, but anywhere in America you want to go, we'll take you on a trip for like 4 days. And I was like, well, you wouldn't know this about me, but if you know me my whole life, I love history. And I was like, well, it's got to be Washington, D.C. And they're like, okay. So we went on this trip to Washington, D.C. And one of the craziest things I can even say about my life is I've been inside the White House. I went on one of the tours in the White House. Been to the Capitol and everything, and I just, what an amazing experience that was. But you asked about Virginia, of course. Washington D.C. isn't technically Virginia. I did go to the Arlington National Cemetery in Virginia. So I've been there and I saw I believe the changing of the guard ceremony is at Arlington. So I saw that. Yeah. So I've been in Virginia a little bit. I think we ate at a restaurant somewhere in Virginia, but that's basically my whole experience with Virginia. And of course, I've been to West Virginia on a mission trip when I was growing up in the Christian school, but just been there, I think, once or twice.
Well, that makes perfect sense. And it's so great that as I said, you've been able to visit Washington D.C., visit the Arlington National Cemetery, and I like that that you really enjoy history. In which case, I'd say that yeah. Let's say if you ever come back to Virginia, I definitely would recommend checking out America's Historic Triangle, where we have the Yorktown battlefield, where Great Britain surrendered to the United States alongside the Jamestown settlement, the first permanent English settlement in the current U.S. and both of which are very close to where I am, and so I love that I'm surrounded by history. There's history all around us, and I'm so glad, like I said, that you've, like I said, been able to invest and continue growing with your knowledge in that. And even as like I said, we're in recording this 2024 and released in 2025, that you're still working towards that, and we're able to make essentially use your finances to travel, to visit all of these concerts, and get your dream car at that. I mean, truly remarkable.
Gotcha. So basically, I guess what I was saying is, with a dream car, I think a lot of people think cheap, find the cheapest possible option, and they're not even thinking about necessarily what would bring an incredible amount of value to them. And what I actually concept I kind of came up with is when you're looking for a car, what's going to give you that coming out of the grocery store value? And you're like, coming out of the grocery store value. So with my red Mercedes that I had, that of course we found out is totaled today, unfortunately, but with the car that I had for a few years, that red Mercedes, so red is my favorite color of all time, love red, painted the walls of my room red, just can't get enough of the color. It brings me confidence and just joy. I just love the color red. Well, that red Mercedes, and then that's kind of my favorite car brand of all time. Always been a fan of Mercedes Benz. I think they just make beautiful vehicles. But so I see that car, and every time I would come out of the grocery store and I'm walking back to my car, a lot of times it's a long walk back to your vehicle out of a grocery store. I would kind of smile a lot, and I would always think, I am so proud of the car I'm getting into. If you go out and um you don't really care for Toyotas, you just want reliable, and you just focus on cheap and reliable or whatever, but the joy of actually smiling at the vehicle before you get to it, coming out of the grocery store, where you're happy about the vehicle you get into. And even going to work, sometimes I would walk out in the driveway and just look at it and be like, wow, like, man, and you don't necessarily have to put yourself $30,000 in the hole. Just look for a car that excites you a little bit. If you get a car that is very reasonable, and that isn't the most exciting thing in the world, but it's reliable and it gets you A to B, maybe get a turbocharger in there. Get, maybe add something to it that gives you a little bit of excitement there, because I just think having that come out of the grocery store joy when you see that vehicle and you're happy about it and you're proud of it, and maybe something that people might compliment you on, and you'll just kind of blush. You're just like, oh, thank you, yeah, I love my car too, I love it to death. And that car wasn't perfect. It was a little bit of a problem child sometimes. It seemed like I had bad luck in that car, or I worked on it a lot myself, and just it had issues here and there. But um, I say problem child because I loved it. Sort of like it was my own thing, and even though it gave me trouble, sometimes I would just look at it. I'm like, I don't know why. Sometimes you don't love me as much as I love you, but I'm gonna try to take care of you as best I can. And I just had a very emotional connection with that car. So yeah.
I love that. And even though, of course, as you mentioned, unfortunately, today is the day that, you found out that you no longer have that car. I'm sure by the time that this releases, that, you'll be able to figure out what's a solution going forward for that. But I love that you mentioned that that coming out of the grocery store, feeling that the joy and pride that you felt, felt in having that vehicle, knowing that you had sort of, like I said, made it in that regard. And I thought that was just so outstanding. And I wanted to switch gears a little bit too. And so I know, of course, you are a podcast host in your own right of the Gavin Geary podcast. And so, how did that come about for you? And had that something that is that something that you always had wanted to, to do?
I think for me, with the podcasting, um, I didn't always listen to podcasts. It was not till I was an adult that actually listened to podcasts and actually paid attention to them and listened. And as I listened to podcasts more and more, especially sports podcasts, sports or something, um, I spend a lot of time watching. And here lately, I shared with you off camera that I've been in a little bit of a rut lately. Haven't been quite myself and haven't been feeling quite myself. And just life been difficult the past 4 or 5 weeks. But I know quite a bit about sports, and I follow three major ones: UFC, the NBA, and the NFL. And I would listen to these podcasts, and I would think these guys are both giving a lot of great points, but I think I could add something to this conversation that no one has said, and I think that was the moment for me where I was like, wow. I mean, how often do you listen to a podcast where they're talking about something you know a lot about, and you're like, wait, is no one going to say this? Hold on, is no one going to mention that? Well, I would say, and they're not going to. Okay, so you almost imagine. I would imagine myself in the room with them, and I would imagine, well, I can add something to this conversation. How? Well, these guys they don't know me. They're famous. They're successful. I mean, not who am I to them, but I've got to find somewhere where I can kind of give this stuff. And there's things that you listen to these podcasts and you not always because I listen to really good sports podcasts, but sometimes you listen to podcasts and you're like, I think I might be able to improve on that a little bit almost. I think I might be able to do a little bit better at that and maybe skip some of this and add some of this. So I started the Gavin Geary podcast. I named it the Gavin Geary podcast so that I could talk about a various number of things. And if it grew, that um, I think like you, big fan of television, big fan of movies and excellent cinema and film, but also just really great TV shows. Some of the best ones that have come out in recent years, like A Stranger Things, or the season of True Detective with Matthew McConaughey and I forget the other guy's name at the moment. But just some of the really good seasons of TV shows that come out that people experience and watch and you can review. So I wanted to be able to include a lot of the stuff that I know about and talk about really anything. So um, and I also just think going, kind of head first with my name, saying the Gavin Geary podcast, like, you know, um, get my name out there, try to get some personal branding and stuff. But it gives me a little bit of leeway to not just, if I called it, the Great Basketball Podcast or the All About Sports Podcast or the Supertastic Sports, scenario or whatever, it limits you a little bit. And if you talk about cryptocurrency for a minute, it's like, whoa, why is this guy talking about Bitcoin hitting 100K last week? What? Or why is this guy talking about why gold is down 5% over the past month? Like, what's going on? You have a little bit of leeway, but I think that thing in my head that said, I've got something I can add to this conversation that somebody hasn't said yet, and I want to get it out there. But I haven't released an episode in a few weeks just because have not been myself, haven't been feeling motivated, haven't really, with the cold weather and just work being stressful, and then the thing with my car and just a lot of different things. But when I am releasing episodes again, I hope to hit the ground pretty hard running in 2025 and improve on it because um, it's not making any money yet, and it's we pay for subscriptions to be able to put out podcasts and to do these things. So definitely want it to be a source of income at some point, but I just have to take it more seriously and kind of man up a little bit, I guess.
Well, overall, I mean, I've had a chance to listen to a few episodes and segments of quite a bit of others, and I will say that you're doing like such an amazing job. And even listening to like your some of your earlier episodes, I still thought that you had such a strong beginning, and even from our conversation now, I like that it's very, like I said, smooth and put together, and that you're able to to combine your personal expertise with your personal interests, and occasionally even share some fun stories towards the end.
Yeah, absolutely. I have some pretty funny stories and blunders when communicating with women, so I always like to tell some funny stories about stuff like that, but also just funny stories from my life. I guess one thing that I will say about me, and I don't even know if I commend myself for this or if I'm just fortunate. I do have a really impeccable memory. I remember things sometimes so vividly. I hold on to a lot of things, and so I think a lot of people are like, "Oh, I just, I don't know where you get all these funny stories." I'm like, I think a lot of funny stuff happens to you. You just, maybe haven't held on to it, or I just kind of take note of these funny moments, and I replay stuff in my head, and I reflect a lot. And they say that that's a big part of memory is the amount of times you recall something increases your ability to bring it back again. If the reason we forget things is like if a whole day goes by and you don't remember anything you did, well, throughout that day you weren't really pulling things back up to your mind. But I remember the day of my half marathon so vividly because I recall that day in my head and I sort of play it on um, my mind's big screen over and over, and so I'll be able to hold on to it better. So I do have a good memory, and I think that's helpful with my storytelling a lot.
I'm so glad that it's so helpful. And yeah, I know for myself that yeah, I'm able to remember quite a bit more than so many people that I know. And I know for me, I like being able to physically write things, and I think that really helps too. And especially with journaling, yeah, I feel like it is one of the many things that yeah the help allow for me to yeah remember and keep these memories alive, especially yeah, I'm always someone that likes, yeah, taking pictures or capturing the moment, even if it's not a literal picture. To me, the tagline of "take pictures" means like, yeah, cherish a moment. Yeah, invest in those memories as in using your words, and so yeah. But I also, of course, like doing some personal vlogs for myself. Not so much for the content purposes, but more so that way I just have a record of some of these amazing memories that I've had a chance to go through, especially over these past 5 years.
Yeah, absolutely. I document stuff almost maniacally. I take pictures of most of my meals, meals that are memorable. Like if I go out to a restaurant, I take pictures of meals, and I'll recall them. I'll be able to go back to that photo layer and be like, oh my god, that rigatoni was so good. And I'm a big fan of pasta, so I order a lot of pasta and chicken. But that chicken was so good, or that steak was phenomenal, or that was the best steak I ever had. Here's a picture of it. Here's a picture of one of the best ice cream cones I've ever had, or just anything like that. And then all the concerts I've gone to, I talk about documenting maniacally. I have documented the date, the place, the artist, and I always try to include some small memory trigger. And like a memory trigger is one of my favorite ones is I went to see the Trans Siberian Orchestra. They famously sing or play Carol of the Bells every Christmas, but they have a lot of Christmas music. Trans Siberian Orchestra is awesome. I definitely recommend seeing them if you have never in the Christmas season. But I did want to say I saw the Trans Siberian Orchestra 2 years ago, and I also saw them this December. But 2 years ago, I saw them in Lexington, in Kentucky, where I live, and um, at Rupp Arena, where the Kentucky Wildcats play college basketball games. And one note I made is I saw that they had these waffle cones that you could get, or waffle cones with ice cream. And I am a sucker for waffle cones. I will darn near sell my soul for a great waffle cone. I mean, whenever I see someone that has a waffle cone and ice cream, I basically don't even care what the price is. I just immediately want one. And so I had an amazing waffle cone with cookies and cream ice cream that night, and I just kind of I wrote that down, next to that concert. The documentation of that concert in my notes. I put had a great waffle cone that night. Another funny thing is I went to a haunted house once, and we got a front of the line pass so that we could skip the line, and we would have had to wait hours. Well, the front of the line pass was going to cost like $50 something, right? Like you're in this haunted house for a while, it's going to be like 50 something bucks. This lady tried my credit card like 4 times over and over and over. She was swiping it and messing with it and typing on her computer and swiped it again, swiped it again. And she's like, all right, I think it's good. I don't even care at this point. I was like, oh, okay. Let's hope it's good. I hope she didn't charge me 4 times. So we go through the haunted house and everything. Later that evening, come to find out, she was never able to charge me at all. I got to do the entire haunted house experience with my friends completely for free, and I wrote that down next to the documentation because that's just kind of a funny, happy part of that memory. I was like, man, I got to do that whole thing, and it was completely free. Skip the line and everything.
Okay, see, that's amazing, and I'm so glad that that you remember that. And I feel like it's some of these moments too that we really just have to, yeah, have to cherish and yeah, and love. And I'm so glad, of course, that you were also able to see the Trans Siberian Orchestra. I actually had a friend that just messaged me the other day saying that, yeah, how much they love, yeah, their concert. And speaking of different events that you've been to, which I know you've done quite a bit of traveling, is that you also got to see a live taping of Pod Meets World.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So Boy Meets World, one of my not I forgive me for saying one of my favorite show of all time. Boy Meets World is my favorite show ever created. Don't let anybody tell you different. If they do tell you different, they don't know me well enough. Boy Meets World is my favorite show that's ever been made, and I actually skipped my sister's wedding rehearsal to go to that, and all my family was mad at me. And I was like, "Look, guys, I don't know what to tell you. I was gonna go to this no matter what. I might have skipped some of the wedding to go to this thing. I mean, I drove hours to see them, but yeah, I wanted to see these people so desperately and wanted to meet. And they went to conventions. They would go to like these comic cons basically, or these these like 90s cons or whatever. And I had missed them and missed them, and I had like I have a newspaper clipping or magazine clipping like in my room of like a reunion that they did, and I wanted to see these people so desperately. And of course, uh, Fred Savage wasn't there, but that's fine. He is involved in politics now, I think, and I think he did a Hallmark movie too. But anyway, Danielle Fishel and obviously the actors for Ryder Strong, and then the actor for Eric Will Friedle, they were all there. And yeah, just getting to see them in person meant the world to me. I mean, the price really didn't matter at that point, and yeah, it was really cool. It was awesome. They also had uh, I think her name is Melissa Joan Hart. Yeah, Sabrina the Witch from the '90s. Melissa Joan Hart was also there too, so that was really cool.
Wow, that is amazing. Yeah, that you were able to. I mean, to be a part of that. Yeah, I definitely. Yeah, I was listening to so much of Pod Meets World at the beginning of the time that they started. I definitely have a lot to catch up on, and I certainly really enjoy Boy Meets World, and I've seen and I saw Girl Meets World when it came on in 2014, and so that's so cool that you were able to be a part of that, and yes, and in terms of what was it Corey's actor? I think you mean Ben Savage. Fred Savage's
Oh,
drummer.
yes, yes. I think in the moment when I said it, I realized I might be saying the wrong name, but I hope that was right. Yes, Ben Savage. Exactly. You're right. Yes.
But yeah, but nevertheless, I mean that's so cool that you were able to do that. And how far out was that from you? Out of curiosity.
I believe I drove. I think it was in Nashville. Yeah, I've been to Nashville like a million times. So it's 2 hours and 22 minutes. Yeah, it's like 2 hours and 22 minutes to Nashville for me where I live. But I like going to Nashville, so it wasn't too bad. But like, I think a lot of people who aren't frequent concert goers, I think you might like imagine if you invited a friend. It's like, okay, do you want to drive like almost 3 hours to go do something Friday night? He's like, no. No, I don't want to drive almost 3 hours on a Friday night to go do something. We'll get home at like 3 a.m., dude. What are you talking about? Um, but I just, it's one of those things where it was like, you hear about in economics things that are inelastic, things that you feel like you just kind of have to have. If something's inelastic, the price isn't really a concern. Like milk, eggs, um, butter, those things are kind of inelastic to the American public. When all those things go up, people frown and they complain, but they still kind of buy milk, eggs, and butter, and that was like that was for me. I mean, it wasn't the most expensive thing in the world, but it was also, not the cheapest thing. And I was just like, the price doesn't really matter to me at this point. I've just got to see these people. But yeah, I love talking to a fellow Boy Meets World fan. I'm glad you've enjoyed the show. I saw quite a bit of Girl Meets World. Unfortunately, what I realized was I didn't think the writing was quite as good as the original show. And then I found out that Danielle Fishel and Ryder Strong wrote quite a bit of it, and I was like, oh no. But of course, I think they were a little bit in the learning process too, and I think they were also sort of producers on that show. But they're wonderful people. They're wonderful people. Getting to see them live in person now, like you. I listened to a lot of Pod Meets World when it first started, but I sort of realized I was like, I probably don't need to hear the pod for every single episode, and it got a little bit repetitive. And also, unfortunately, the podcast with three people are kind of hard because there's just a lot of overlap. But yeah, I mean, those people mean the world to me. Love them to death. Absolutely.
Well, yeah, I mean, to comment on the part about group podcasts, I had done, yeah, a few of those back in 2022. When I was right before I started this current version of the show, and that definitely took a lot from me as a host to try to
Mediate.
manage that, make sure we were all on the same page. And I remember the first one. One of the first ones in 2022. I was like, that wasn't bad, this wasn't as bad as I thought. And then the next one was like, oh my gosh, these are amazing guests, but I can't do this ever again. But in all seriousness, though, I mean, it was definitely fine. But I mean, it definitely kudos to them for being able to, yeah, figure that out more than I could. But nevertheless, though, yeah, continuing a little bit on though. So since we were just mentioning, of course, your love for that sort of media. So what type of movies and TV shows do you enjoy? I know, of course, you mentioned that Boy Meets World was your favorite TV show, but in terms of the movie side, because I know that you have a little bit of interest in that as well.
So yeah, cinema and film is a huge, huge thing to me. I love movies with all my heart. I think, um, I think at some point in everybody's life is like, what would you do if you had $1 million? And it was like, if I had $1 million, I would try to find out how to not work again for like 10, 15 years and just watch all the greatest movies of all time, consume incredible movies, and just soak them up and enjoy and go to the movie theater as much as possible. I mean, that's one of my truest joys is watching a great movie. But one thing I can tell you is I don't know if you were aware. So you've seen the movie Interstellar, yeah?
I have not actually.
Oh, okay. So Interstellar is it's a movie by Christopher Nolan, the director, and it has Matthew McConaughey and Anne Hathaway. I highly, highly recommend you see Interstellar. Interstellar is an incredible movie, but they had a 10th anniversary theater run a couple weeks ago. So it came out in 2014, and they wanted to celebrate the 10th anniversary, and they brought it back to IMAX. Well, what's cool about the IMAX is so you have two options. You can see it in the 70 millimeter IMAX, which is them actually bringing out these insane large film rolls, and it's these film rolls. The film goes for miles and miles and miles, and they actually will play the film on these special projectors and everything. Or if you see it on digital IMAX, you're getting um, the seats are tilted in the most optimal way. The screen is ginormous. The sound is unbelievable. It's the best possible way to experience a movie, but it's just not exactly, um, for a film nerds kind of guy. It's not the perfect way because you want to see it with the 70 millimeter film. You feel like that's the coolest, most authentic way to experience an amazing movie like that. But I saw it in the digital IMAX, saved a little bit of money because the 70 millimeter film you have to pay a little bit extra because it's such an expensive process. And I also would have had to go again to Nashville because there's only like 25 theaters or so in America that are capable of playing 70 millimeter film anymore. So I saw it in digital IMAX with my sister, and that was an amazing movie experience. I was so happy to have done that. And that's just another thing. It was a little bit inconvenient to go and do that, and find the time and everything. But I was like, this isn't going to come back around. There's probably not going to be a 20th anniversary theater run. Most movies, I would say 99.9% of films do not get a 10th anniversary theater run. I've got to go do this. I've got to go experience this. And luckily, I didn't have to go to Nashville because I saw it in the digital IMAX. I was able to see it in Louisville, Kentucky, as opposed to driving almost 2.5 hours and seeing it. But no, it was awesome. And then there's a little bit of a fiasco. It's kind of a long story, too long for this podcast, but maybe I can tell you off the air. But I was able to get a 10th anniversary collector's edition box set at a Barnes and Noble. It was the last one they had, so that was really cool too. But yeah, movies. Some of my favorite movies ever: The Dark Knight by Christopher Nolan. That's the Christian Bale Batman movie. The Greatest Game Ever Played is a golf movie with Shia LaBeouf and some other fantastic actors in that one. I also love, I don't know why my mind is going blank. Oh, second favorite movie of all time. Uh, maybe I usually say The Greatest Game Ever Played is my favorite movie of all time, but it might also potentially be Return of the King, the third and final Lord of the Rings movie. Return of the King is incredibly influential in my life. It means so much to me. I've watched it um, numerous times, and that's a film I love as well. I love to hear some of your favorite films.
Ooh, okay. That's definitely an interesting one. So, as a little tidbit, so, as I said, as of speaking, of course, we're at the end of 2024. But yeah, one of my goals for 2024 was to start watching some more movies. And so, even though like I said I studied media studies for my bachelor's degree, and I've always been a TV person and not as much of a movie person, but I had challenged myself to at least see 12 movies this year, 2024, which was definitely an interesting was an interesting challenge because again, I'm not as much of a movie person, but I will say it was actually quite fun to get into some of these movies. Some movies I enjoyed a lot more than others. Um, but as of right now, I don't per se have favorites, but I will say that one of a movie I really enjoyed when it came out was the Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, especially the first one. I really enjoyed that movie. I thought that it was different um, that when I was able to go to the movie theater, which I saw it I believe on a Christmas Eve, which is Christmas Eve as I'm speaking actually, um, but when I was able to see it, I thought it was just so fun and rewarding, um, and you spoke a little bit, of course, about experiences. And so my experience for that was that I went to go see it with my family, and the projector stayed blank during the time that the movie was supposed to be starting, and that there was only about three families in the movie theater, and one of the other families was like, "Oh no, not again!" It's like this happened to us last Christmas Eve. So they went to go complain to the movie theater, and they gave us two free tickets. So one for us to immediately go see the movie at the next available showing, and then another free ticket for later. And so we ended up seeing it at a later time, but it was nevertheless so fun to see that, especially those experiences with it. In case you're wondering what we used that extra ticket for, it was for the year afterwards to see Avengers Endgame about 2 months after it released.
Oh wow, gotcha. Yeah, I was heavily anticipating Avengers Endgame. I think I saw it probably the week it came out. I will kind of tease you a little bit, man. I would watch 12 new movies. I think in 2 months. So I gotta say, maybe in less time. So when you said 12 new movies in 12 months, I was like, oh my goodness. I mean, I do that in my sleep. But man, yeah, I definitely understand the being a TV person. Except I kind of understand the flip side. I'm much more of a movie person. I think maybe because I'm so easily distracted, or I like hard hitting, precise, simplistic, but like deep ideas that don't have to be um, strung out over the course of 20 episodes, 24 episodes. One of my favorite television shows of all time is Law and Order Special Victims Unit. I'm sure everybody's seen at least one episode of that, but Law and Order Special Victims Unit, each episode is almost like a film, almost like its own movie. Um, the episodes have very little to do with each other as far as an overlying story, or not, maybe overlying isn't a word, but like you know what I mean, like a story that basically carries on throughout a season. Very little to do, maybe I should say underlying. I don't think overlying is a word, but anywho, yeah, I love movies, and I hope that mean the world to me if you do see Interstellar. If you reach out, tell me what you thought of it. I mean, it's if you're not watching very many movies, you might not watch it twice, but it is definitely a great one to watch like once or twice just to try to get a grasp for everything. But there's so many incredible actors in it, and it's such a complex, deep, powerful idea. So definitely to anybody watching, listening to this podcast. Interstellar, 10 out of 10. One of my favorite films of all time.
Well, I will definitely have to check that out. Add that to my 2025 list. Yeah, things to check out. And even though, as I said, we don't have the most time, I did actually want to, again, before we begin closing out, though, I did want to actually ask a two-part question. So first, as we mentioned, it's right now, as we're recording this, Christmas Eve. So I did want to ask, what type of holiday traditions do you have, and what are you looking forward to as we end out 2024 as of recording this? And the second part actually has to do with the book that you had wrote. And so, how was that process for you, and what does that mean to you? Even though it's not published yet, what do you hope to see it become as you get closer and closer to that publication?
So the holiday traditions, my mom always hosts this this Christmas Eve party, and we typically would have my cousins from Texas and my grandma on my dad's side and my grandma on my mom's side come. But my grandma on my dad's side, she's actually going to Texas to visit with those cousins and some other cousins I have, so she won't be there this year. I think this year it's a little bit different because it's just going to be my brother-in-law, his extended family, kind of coming and having this Christmas Eve party, and then my mom's grandparents. What is interesting about my holidays is a little bit different. So my parents are divorced now, and that kind of adds an extra layer of interest because you go to your dad's Christmas and you go to your mom's Christmas and you open your dad's presents, you open presents from your mom. So that's kind of become a part of the routine in each Christmas now. And he actually wants to try and go to some ski slopes, I think, to celebrate his Christmas here in like a week or so. So I'm like, okay, a little bit nervous about going skiing, but as far as other holiday traditions, I am not a big Christmas guy. I'm not somebody who goes too crazy around Christmas time. I'm usually I just don't like how all consuming it is. Not a big fan of Christmas movies. I think they know people will watch them because it's Christmassy and they're in the spirit, and so they um, take a back seat and they don't usually do the best job with the writing and the production. And they're just like, well, it's a Christmas movie. You're going to watch it anyway. Why would we pour a bunch of money and invest great ideas into this when you'll just watch it because it's Christmassy? That's your initial incentive. So I think they get a little bit lazy with Christmas movies. But as far as the book, um, that book means the absolute world to me. It is my rawest admission of a few years ago. I dealt with a really, really bad depression um, and suicidal ideation, unfortunately, and came out of it, beat it, began to accomplish goals and feel happy with myself. But I dealt with a lot of guilt, about some things, and maybe I dramatized and over explained in my own head, my own evil, and I perceived myself as a really bad guy and just struggled with self worth and all these things. And I really authentically and truly poured myself into this book and gave it everything I had and poured my heart out. And um, I had a friend read it, and he said that it helped him a lot because the book, towards the end, sort of circles back to believing in life again and believing that you can beat depression, you can overcome it, and that despite all of the things you think about yourself, you lie to yourself a lot. You lie to yourself a lot. You think you're so honest with yourself, but you tell yourself a lot of lies. You believe these things about yourself that you exaggerate your own evil, you exaggerate your own mistakes. A lot of people exaggerate how guilty they should feel. um, and so I wrote about that as honestly and hopefully as profoundly as possible. And I think I lost a little bit of steam trying to get an agent to publish it and to pitch it for me. I didn't want to self-publish because, in my opinion, I told myself if I have to self-publish, then I just have to work harder. It needs to be better. If I'm forced to self-publish, then the book's not good enough and it needs to be better. Now, I'm very proud of it. I think objectively I can say it is a good book, maybe not excellent yet, but it is a good book, and just want to get in front of the right people, and hopefully one day I will have the wonderful, tearful moment, I imagine, of seeing it listed on Amazon, and you can buy it and purchase it, and reach out to me when you read it. So yeah, I know we're coming to the end of this podcast. So I just wanted to thank you again for the opportunity to speak to you, and um, you're easy to talk to, and you seem to be a very intelligent, excellent guy to network with and to have in my network. And I look forward to growing this friendship, man. I definitely didn't. You kind of came out of nowhere, and you followed me on Instagram, and I followed you, and I was like, wow, this guy's doing some really cool stuff. And then as I went through the podcast process, I said off air, but I want to say on air that You're extremely professional. You're put together. Your stuff looks good, and I just thank you for giving me an opportunity to kind of get my name out there a little bit to your listeners, and maybe some good things will come to me out of this, and I just appreciate that.
Well, the honor is all mine, Gavin. Like I said, I've absolutely loved this conversation. I'm so, like I said, happy to call you a friend and to comment on what you're saying about your book. I'm so glad that you're able to, to accomplish that major goal. I look forward to the day that it is published and when it is. I would love for you to give, like I said, and for whenever it is able to be published, I would love for you to be able to sign my copy that I'm going to get because I am, like I said, so love this conversation. And I cannot wait to read it when it's available.
Yeah, thank you. That means the world, man. And I guess I've never wrapped up one of these before where I wasn't the only one podcasting, so I guess you can instruct me here. But yeah, just thank you for just giving me the topics to kind of lead me into saying what I wanted to say and kind of opening up about a little bit about my life and the things. And of course, as I've said, off air a little bit, I touched on I haven't felt like myself lately, but this is giving me a great boost of energy, even as we are approaching 1 in the morning. And of course, Merry Christmas. I wish you happy holidays, and I'm sure we'll talk a little bit even after we record.
Oh, I definitely know that we will, be chatting. And yeah, and so as we begin, like I said, go ahead and begin closing out. I did want to actually ask a sort of different question. So that is, even though this will be a few, there'll be a few weeks between us recording and when this releases in early 2025. And so I want to ask, when you go back to listen to this, hopefully within a few weeks or months, what are your hopes for when you go back to listen to this? Any messages that you have for your future self tuning in?
Um, if you are future me and you're listening to this, I do hope that you were able to find an awesome car. I know you've been looking for one. I hope you found a great one, and I hope it drives well. I hope it's working out great. I know you need a new one, and I hope you got your mojo back. If future Gavin's listening to this, I hope he came out of the rut he's in. I hope he's um, running strong, even though it's cold and it doesn't feel great. I hope he's running a lot, and I hope he's staying consistent with working out. With my friend, I work out 2 to 3 times a week, and so I hope he's still working out. And I hope in January he's getting plenty of overtime at work, and he's investing more money, and he's um, recommitting to being a little bit stricter with his finances. I've been a little bit loose. Of course, everybody's loose with their finances in December. We're Americans, right? But yeah, I hope he's doing well, and I think if I listen to this, I am doing well to bring a smile to my face, knowing I'll remember how I felt right now, and I'll know how I feel then, and just again grateful for the opportunity.
Well, I certainly hope that everything that you wish for will, become reality. And as I always, personally feel is that, to write is to believe. And Gavin, I did want to ask, so what does it mean for you to be able to be a guest here on the show and my 100th guest, overall on this current version of the show?
Oh, I mean, it means a lot, man. I like I said, I um, haven't known you but a few months, but I feel like as we've communicated, I've just kind of gotten a great feel for who you are, and seen some of the work you've done on other podcasts of Tansson Talks, and I think you're doing a lot of good things, and of course have sort of dreamed, I guess, of being somebody who is inspirational to others and can inspire others to want to do more, to want to be more and become more. And um, being the first person to interview me on their podcast, it means a lot. And I hope I find the success and find the accomplished goals that will lead me to being interviewed on more podcasts, more and more. And I hope I was a good guest for you, and you've been an excellent host and producer for me.
I love that. And yes, you've been an amazing guest. I said, it was such an honor, like I said, having you on. I'm sure that you will, be back. And I'm so excited, like I said, to continue this friendship, to continue the conversation. And Gavin, last but not least, are you able to, one, let us know, where we can find you online and where those listening can tune in to the Gavin Geary podcast? And are you able to go ahead and close out our episode 107 with whether it be a life lesson, inspirational thought, or whatever the case may be? The floor is all yours, Gavin.
Okay, so if you would like to follow me on Instagram, it is I am Gavin Geary, IamGavinGeary. That's my name. I am Gavin Geary on Instagram. You can follow Gavin W Geary on Twitter, or the artist formerly known as Twitter X. And as far as listening to my podcast, if you enjoy sports, if that's something that you are looking for a little bit different of a take on, not the most consistent in the world right now, but I do speak with a passion. And I do, when I sit down to podcast, I do have a love for it when it's working and when I'm into it. So, give you coverage on the UFC, the NFL, and the NBA on the Gavin Gary podcast. You can listen on Spotify, iHeartRadio. You can Google it and find it on podbean.com or pretty much anywhere you get your podcast. I think we're not on Apple right now, but we'll be in the future. And as far as you mentioned a life lesson or just inspirational thing. One of my favorite quotes of all time is by Sun Tzu, and I think it's by Sun Tzu. But I always remember it in my head when I feel that I'm not going at the pace I want or I'm not achieving my goals fast enough. It does not matter how slowly you go, so long as you do not stop. There are some interpretations of it where it's as long as you do not stop, but it's the same message. It does not matter how slowly you go as long as you do not stop. And what that means is as long as you're working out, or as long as you're running, or as long as you're writing even a few sentences a day, as long as you're um, investing $10 a month, $20 a month, $30 a month, whatever works for you, it doesn't necessarily matter how slow you go, especially at first. You do want to pick up speed eventually, but that's not what really matters. It matters that you don't stop. A lot of people will tell you, well, diets just never worked for me, and I can't lose weight, and I guess this is just the body I have, or, well, I've never been, very smart guy, and so I just kind of, that's just me. I'm just not very smart. And it's like, okay, imagine if you began to read books, not necessarily burning through books, but you began to read them and you never stopped. Imagine if you worked out at least twice a week. You hit, a little bit of the full body. Maybe you do your arms and abs on Monday and you do your shoulders and legs on Saturday. If you worked out twice a week and you never stopped, every single week, that's what you did. You progress slowly, but imagine if you never stopped. Same thing with investing. People who begin to invest at a young age and they never stop, they will see returns. They'll see amazing returns. They will see compound interest at work. They will see a lot of green after years, not necessarily after weeks or months, but if you never stop, you will see progress. I guarantee it. There is a 100% guarantee that one thing that people love to tell new investors, the S&P 500 is the main basically index for stock investing in America. Um, Over 20 years, and this is any period in history of America, that the S&P 500 has been active. Over a 20-year period, you cannot lose money, at least so far. There is no 20-year period where if you began and you held a stock for 20 years, or that you held the S&P 500 for 20 years, that you would have lost money. And a lot of those 20-year periods, you would have gotten insane, incredible gains. And so it's the consistency and the patience that are the qualities of winners, not necessarily fast gains, not necessarily explosive results, but um, success is small things done really well over and over again. I'm paraphrasing, but that's another great quote, and that's kind of my message of today, I guess.
I love that. Like I said, Gavin, thank you so much for speaking with us, for enlightening us, and I wish you the absolute best. Like I said, for the rest of the day and going into 2025. Definitely end out this year strong and enter into the next year confident. You got this.
Absolutely. Thank you again, Brandon.
Yeah, for those tuning in, thank you so much as always for tuning in to the Tansson Talks show. I always appreciate your support and continue tuning in for every episode as we continue on our mission to bring people together. I'll see you next time. Take care, friends.